At the beginning of the story, we see a city in which people are dying of hunger from the war of two countries. The government was only extracting rich people from the city. Some people who have no expectation from the government enter the container hidden in the container except that country, because these containers are going to another country. So it felt something strange to checking the hair, because the container was clearly weighing in front of them. But weirdly, there were only 2 wooden boxes inside it. The bald custom officer carefully checked, but he did not see any suspicious thing. After this, the bald officer set his man within the container and moved himself to the front. As he had speculated, suddenly shot between the container was shot. It cleared that there was another layer inside the container. The bald officer came in again, but he did not order his men to shoot, but he promised those sitting inside that if they came out peacefully, they would not have anything. The wooden box placed nearby suddenly began to move, but when the bald officer's patient was going to break and it was supposed to order the pill, then the secret door opened slowly. Everyone felt bald officer will remain in his promise, but he broke the promise and fired the bullet. Shoes were shattered inside the container shortly. A wood that was Miko and was pregnant with a box. Lymphosis. With fear, his voice was not even coming out. When the bald officer came and saw, suddenly a scared little dog ran out. They're letting him go laughing. But when the bald officer opened the door, she saw a girl doll be looking at her side with big, miserable eyes mounted by the chest. But he didn't even leave the door while Miko breathed the channel. In a short time, the container started shaking and the crane lifts him on the ship. During this time, Miko gets a bag lying in the corner. In it, he gets an electric drill, an old button phone, and a stick. After checking all the stuff, tired Miko sinks into sleep, but Luck still didn't want to leave behind him. Sudden container started shaking badly at night. Miko barely standing and peeped out of the pill's holes. It was discovered that the ship was trapped in the storm. The ship with fast waves could ever drown. Electric thunder was pressing his call for help. The huge waves rebound the ship and Miko becomes faint. After some time, the cold sea water began to fill in the container and Miko's sleep opened. Looking in the water, she quickly moved to a dry place. When looking outside, the container was swimming in the sea. But now another problem has come. Her mobile was broken. Whether times the time he tried, he couldn't turn it on. He sat down on the ground constantly. When she started losing completely, the child was feeling in her belly, as if she was giving courage to mother. He thought he would now have to live for the child. She started to crawl the goods again, maybe find something of work. The first boxes had only plastic food cans. In the other, some useful clothes. He changed wet clothes. The rest of the boxes had useless things like TV, headphones, wine. But this was going on to go on the useless stuff to save her life. He closed the pill holes from the tape so that water could not come in. But soon the tape was hesitated with the pressure of waves. She began to worry, but then she came an idea. He took out rubber straps from plastic compartment, cut them into small pieces, and closed the hole well. This led to a new hope of living in it. A few times later, he got a pipe in the TV box, which he couldn't get out of the hole. Then the water started to slowly extract the water with the help of plastic cartons. Repeatedly, the container's water began to decrease. Then he put wooden boxes one on top and started checking the stuff above. During this time, suddenly there was horrible pain in Miko's abdomen. He realized that the child has now been restless to see this world. But then the black clouds fell. The electricity began to shine. The throat of clouds began to hear. She started to delivery, somehow hidden among the shocking wooden boxes, enduring pain. With a fast mess, she successfully gave birth to a baby girl. This child became the cause of being alive for him and continuing the struggle. But immediately a new difficulty was standing in front of him. He didn't have milk due to malnutrition for a long time, so that she couldn't even drink milk to the newborn. Inconstant, he stuck all the remaining food in his mouth so that the body can be a little capable, and milk descended. Shortly after the food was over, but the baby finally started getting milk. The day passed, but now both mother-daughter reached the brink of dying hungry. Miko's look at the nearby electric drill. Then he saw the small holes built on the container's wall, and a remedy was scorped in his mind. He started to hole in the container immediately by picking up the drill, hoping that would find a way to exit. But where was it so easy? When it reached the last line, the smoke started getting out of the drill, and it was completely burned. His last hope was also broken. She fell on the tired wooden box and started to screw wildly things in frustration. During this time, a multifunction knife fell down. When looking at the tooth portion of the knife, he decided he'll try again. Despite the puckle body from fatigue, he rubbed the container with saw for 5 days continuously. Blisters in hands, blood came out, but he didn't wait. But luck cheated again. The afternoon fast sun was climbed when the last hard cutting. The container got hot like steam tandoor. Due to not drinking water for a long time, his mind started to listen. Her look in Boshi was down at seawater. With the comfortable trend, he picked up the bottle and filled seawater in it. As the bottle reached the lips, it squarely went and the water flew on its head. Then he saw that light drops were frozen on the iron plate on the roof. He immediately immediately sucked those drops from the wall. But so much moisture was not to quench her thirst. The water rusted above made him reverse. So far he had been trapped here 7 days and 7 nights. Hunger and cold swelled the body. He fell unconscious. His eyes opened tightly by getting drops of water on the face. He saw raindrops were dripping from the top. She opened the mouth and started drinking every drop from greed. In a while his mind was cleaned. She ran and brought some cans and put on wooden boxes to collect rainwater. But as he opened a tin box, his ring bridge broke when he pulled out loud. But that small incident gave him a new idea. He found 2 belts. First of light crack on the steel plate, then stranded the belt into that crack. He pulled full loudly and pulled both heads. Slowly the steel plate began to jump. He also took a more force to see hope. And finally the sunlight fell on his face. Tears of joy swept over cheeks. He rose up again. If climbed out of the container, then looking at the front view was rioted. The surrounding was simply spread over the air. He didn't know which direction this container was flowing. Now his luck was completely over the sea. The next day when she changed the baby's nappy, she threw him into the sea. But this simple work became a ray of hope for him. Many small fish around the diaper came to eat. Hungerless Miko wanted to fish immediately, but the container's height stopped him. Then came his mind a new solution. She made a simple spear from the tools and started to throw it over and over again. But after repeatedly failed attempts, his body was absolutely tired. At that time, he suddenly saw an airplane flying in the sky. Miko scored his eyes in disbelief. He thought he's probably looking wrong. But when it was sure that really was the airplane, she immediately jumped inside the container. She took a piece of a broken TV screen and quickly climbed out. He was not the attention of Iron Tip when he got out, and he suffered deep wound on his thigh. But at that time, he had no time to endure pain. By difficulty climbing above the container, he lifted the glass piece above the head so that his brightness could grab the pilot's attention. But the plane was looking. It was at a height of 10,000 meters. This small brightness from so far wasn't of any work. Now the situation was further deteriorated. No help, nor was the body safe. Looking at the thighs tipped with blood, he understood that it is important to protect the wound immediately. He returned unbeaten. He took out the wire from the circuit board and made it like a broth, then opened the bottle of wine and started to bacterize it on the wound. She was almost unconscious with awful pain, but then she again fell to hear the baby's crying voice. He dared and put the iron chop into the meat and started to stitch his ending pain. On one side the wound was hiring, and on the other side the child was silencing. After all, he suffered wound continuously. Then his look was on the headphone placed in the container, and suddenly he came to a new idea. She was making a net with the headphone's wires that he could catch the fishes. He was confident that this would be more effective than the spear. He arrived eagerly the next morning. She put the mesh carefully in water and kept care of the child. A while later the fish came attracted. He patientized and pulled the trap by looking at the right time. After being hungry for several days, he ate something for the first time. Because of not the cooked thing, he ate the fish raw. The child was watching him quietly. Now the food problem was somewhat solved, but the pills that were previously gone, water in the container with holes was constantly filling. She works to throw out the water from time to time. He wrote several help sheets to survive, put them in cartons and throwing them into the sea, hoping a ship would see them. However, there was very little possibility, but he had to try. Sometimes she told the child her old memories, how she met her father, how she hid to avoid war. The child didn't understand anything, but the mother's pain was felt from her face. Looking at the child sleeping, he swore that even if it is one day, he will never leave and attempt to live. During this one night, suddenly his lover's phone came in. He was shot while running, and now he had no expectation to avoid it. He said he won't come to him. Listening, this woman cried and with tears told her the birth of the child, hoping she would try to live. He put the mobile near his baby girl so that father could hear his voice last time. Hello, princess. I am your father. If ever difficult, simply close your eyes and feel the mother's throat. Everything will be fine. His voice began to dilate slowly and finally completely silent. Miko knew he wasn't now. She started crying loudly, but then took her own because the condition of her and her child was not good either. With time passing, the lower part of the container completely filled with water. Now it was impossible to stay there. Mom and daughter had to stay above. He put the sea sponge-mounted wooden pieces in water and let them soak, then pulled out and covered with cartons, becoming steam and collected sweet water. She works and also takes care of the child. Like luck appeared kindness. A day suddenly a seagull flies from nearby. Seagull meant the land wasn't far away. The woman's expectations were again. He made a small boat overnight so that he could move quickly, but right time the boat responded. By not being able to withstand water pressure, the container's wall completely broken. Suddenly heavy amounts of sea water entered in. It won't take too late, and the container whose life sprigs were left will completely sink. She forced to jump into the water and started trying to close the crack, but unintentionally his leg fell in the inner ropes. Looking no other way, he landed in depth so that he can open the rope, but she had become trapped of luck like the rope tightly fastened both of her legs. How much Miko tried, she couldn't save him. After all times he had to come up and breathe, but as the container would be filled with full water, he would not be able to breathe. Even the small boat on the boat where the baby was placed, he also started to flow with fast water drift. In a short time the container was completely drowned. It was good that he had a small knife. He finally cut the rope when the last breath was was saved, and started swimming upwards without time. But when Miko came out, the child was missing. He began to look around. At the same time, the whale suddenly arrived there. He swam fast with fear, but whale didn't harm him. Rather, directly went to the place where the baby's small boat was flowing. Then he left the shower of vigorous water from his nose. Water drops fell on the child, and the child immediately began to cry loudly. Miko also became alert when he heard his crying. He immediately swam in that direction and finally saw the child's boat. After completing his work, the whale went away peacefully. With his help, mother and child can meet again. But the surrounding side was just infinite ocean. What else could she do? Slowly the sun rose again. Due to being submerged in cold sea water for a long time, the woman began to gradually faint. He thrown fish pieces into the sea by his last power before he died, so that sea irritations from their smell are attracted. And those birds probably take care of a passing ship. That's how he handed over the expectation to live, and himself drowned into the sea forever. Just deep attachment left behind quietly, without any support. A few late seabirds came there from the smell of fisheries, and as Miko thought the husband-wife's meditation reached the attention of, he immediately shipped that and ran the ship and saved the baby. When the wife pulled the rope with the baby girl, Miko came above water. They immediately brought him up and gave CPR, but there was no move in Miko. But still the couple continued the attempt and finally came to Miko's senses. He immediately took his child into the arms. This was the story, also fighting for the death of a mother's child. How much will you rate this movie to tell in the comments, and how much yes to subscribe to channel by like the video.